Nina Carter didn't know her smile could start a war. Not until the day she walked into Adrian Moretti's office. Her curls pulled back, her brown skin glowing under the morning light, and offered him the warm, innocent smile she gave everyone. He froze. A man feared by entire cities, shaken by one woman. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. "Don't ever smile at me like that again." Nina laughed, thinking he was joking. She had no idea that smile had just cracked the one thing Adrian swore would never break: his control. Because Adrian Moretti wasn't just her boss. He was the Mafia heir who spent his life avoiding softness, avoiding weakness, avoiding her. Yet one smile from Nina, and suddenly he wasn't sure if he wanted to protect her or claim her. Nina Carter wasn't nervous. She'd walked into boardrooms full of men who underestimated her, survived bosses who tried to diminish her light, and rebuilt herself more times than she cared to count. One more interview wouldn't break her. Even if the building felt more like a fortress than an office. Even if the security had checked her 3 times before letting her into the elevator. Even if every instinct whispered that this wasn't a normal job. The elevator doors opened to the penthouse floor, and Nina stepped into a world of shadows and expensive silence. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Charleston's harbor, but somehow the view felt cold. Everything was black, gray, chrome, beautiful, but sterile, like a museum of things that were never meant to be touched. A silver-haired man in a dark suit waited by a set of double doors. His face was carved from stone. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice flat. "Mr. Moretti is ready for you." He opened the doors without another word. Nina smoothed her burgundy blouse, lifted her chin, and walked in. The office was massive. Dark wood, leather furniture, technology that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. And behind a desk that looked like a throne sat the most intense man Nina had ever seen. Adrian Moretti. 32, maybe 33. Sharp jaw, sharper eyes, so dark they were almost black. A suit tailored so precisely it probably had its own security detail. He was beautiful in the way a storm was beautiful. Dangerous, captivating, impossible to look away from. He was reading something on his tablet, his jaw tight with concentration. Nina waited. He didn't look up. 5 seconds. 10. Nina cleared her throat softly. "Mr. Moretti?" His head lifted. Their eyes met. And Nina did what she always did when meeting someone new. She smiled. Not a practiced corporate smile. Not a careful, measured expression, but her real smile. The one that lit up her warm brown skin, crinkled the corners of her eyes, and radiated genuine warmth. The one her mother said could melt ice and heal hearts. Adrian Moretti went completely still, his entire body locked. The tablet slipped from his fingers and clattered onto the desk. His jaw clenched so hard Nina could see the muscle jump. And his eyes, those cold, controlled eyes, flashed with something raw, something almost like pain. The silence stretched between them, heavy and strange. Nina's smile faltered slightly. Had she done something wrong? Then his voice came, low, rough, shaken in a way that didn't match his controlled appearance. "Don't ever smile at me like that again." Nina blinked, processed the words. Then she couldn't help it. She laughed, soft, confused, a little nervous. "I'm sorry," she said, her smile returning slightly because the whole situation felt absurd. "Did you just warn me about smiling?" Adrian stood abruptly. The movement was fluid, controlled, but there was tension coiled in every line of his body. He was tall, easily 6'3", and the way he carried himself suggested violence barely restrained. "It wasn't a suggestion, Miss Carter. It was a warning. Nina's amusement faded. She studied him, really looked at him, saw the white knuckle grip he had on the edge of his desk, the careful distance he maintained, the way he wouldn't quite meet her eyes now, as if looking directly at her was dangerous. A warning about what exactly? Nina asked, her voice steady despite the strange energy crackling in the room. Adrian's jaw worked. He turned away, facing the windows, his hands sliding into his pockets. His shoulders were rigid. "Sit down, please." The please sounded like it cost him something. Nina sat in the leather chair across from his desk, crossing her legs, folding her hands in her lap. Professional, composed, even though her heart was beating faster than it should. Adrian remained at the window for a long moment. When he finally turned back, his mask was on place. Cold, controlled. The man who'd reacted to her smile was gone, replaced by someone harder. "Your resume is impressive," he said, moving back to his desk but not sitting. "Top of your class. 3 years at Hartman and Associates. Excellent references." "Thank you." "Why did you leave your last position?" Nina had practiced this answer, had rehearsed the diplomatic version that wouldn't burn bridges, but something about Adrian Moretti's directness made her choose honesty instead. "My boss made it clear that my job security depended on things that had nothing to do with my performance," she said evenly. "When I declined his advances and reported him to HR, I suddenly had performance issues I'd never had before. 2 weeks later, I was let go." Adrian's eyes darkened. Something dangerous flickered across his face. There and gone in an instant, but Nina saw it. "His name," Adrian said quietly. "Excuse me?" "Give me his name." It wasn't a request. Nina tilted her head. "Why would you need that?" "Because no one disrespects what's mine and walks away unscathed." The possessiveness in his voice sent heat racing down Nina's spine. "I'm not yours," she pointed out gently. "You haven't even offered me the position yet." Adrian's gaze locked onto hers, intense, burning. "Haven't I?" The air between them felt charged, electric. Nina forced herself to breathe normally. "Mr. Moretti, I appreciate whatever this is, but I came here for a job interview. If you're not interested in hiring me, I should go." She started to stand. "Sit down." The command in his voice froze her, not because she was afraid, but because something in his tone called to something in her, some part of her that responded to his authority, even when her mind said she shouldn't. She sat, slowly, their eyes never breaking contact. Adrian finally sat as well, leaning back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable. Instead, it made her feel seen, noticed in a way she hadn't been in years. "I'm going to be honest with you, Miss Carter. This position isn't typical. The pay is exceptional, more than you'd make anywhere with your experience, but it comes with complications." "What kind of complications?" "The kind that requires absolute discretion, absolute loyalty. The kind that means you'll see things, hear things, know things that can never leave this building." Nina leaned forward slightly. "Are you asking me to do anything illegal?" "No." "Are you asking me to compromise my integrity?" "Never." "Then I can handle complications," Nina said firmly. "I'm not afraid of hard work or difficult situations." Adrian's lips curved barely, almost imperceptibly. Not quite a smile, but close. "You should be afraid," he said softly. "Of me, specifically."
Nina's heart skipped, but she held his gaze. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Moretti?" "I'm being honest with you." He leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm not a good man, Nina. I do things that would horrify you. I exist in a world where kindness is weakness and trust gets you killed. And that smile of yours—" He stopped, his jaw clenching again. "What about my smile?" Nina asked quietly. Adrian was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "It makes me want to be someone I'm not." The confession hung in the air between them, raw, honest, dangerous. Nina's breath caught. "The job is yours if you want it," Adrian continued, his voice stronger now, more controlled. "But I need you to understand what you're walking into. This isn't a normal company. I'm not a normal boss. There will be moments when you'll want to run, moments when you'll question everything." "Will you hurt me?" Nina asked directly. "Never." The word came out fierce, absolute. "But others might try, and that's what you need to understand." Nina processed this. Should have been terrified. Should have walked out. But something in Adrian's brutal honesty made her trust him more than any polished corporate speech ever could. "I'll take the job," she said. Adrian's eyes widened slightly. "Just like that?" "Just like that." Nina stood, extending her hand across the desk. Adrian looked at her hand like a weapon. Slowly, he stood, reached across the desk. His hand engulfed hers, warm, calloused, strong. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot through Nina's entire body. Adrian felt it too. She could tell by the way his grip tightened fractionally, by the way his breathing changed, by the way his eyes darkened to pure black. "Monday," he said roughly. 8 a.m. "I'll be here." She started to pull her hand back. He held on for just a second longer than necessary. "Nina." The way he said her name, like a prayer, like a curse, made her knees weak. "Yes?" "Thank you." "For what?" His thumb brushed across her knuckles once, so brief she might have imagined it. "For not running." Then he released her hand and stepped back, distance and control slamming back into place. Nina left his office on shaking legs. She didn't look back. If she had, she would have seen Adrian Moretti collapse into his chair, his head in his hands, his carefully constructed control shattered. He had broken his first rule, never let anyone close, and it had taken Nina Carter exactly 10 minutes and one devastating smile. Monday arrived wrapped in golden sunlight and Nina's carefully contained nerves. She'd chosen her outfit with care, a fitted black pencil skirt, a cream silk blouse, and heels that made her feel powerful. Her natural curls were pulled back in a low bun, professional but still authentically her. She looked good, felt good, ready. The security process was the same. Thorough, intense, slightly intimidating. But this time, the guards nodded at her with something that might have been respect. The silver-haired man, she'd learned his name was Frank, met her at the levelator. "Ms. Carter." His stone face softened fractionally. "Your office is ready. Mr. Moretti wants to see you first." "Of course." Frank led her down the hallway to those familiar double doors. Knocked once. "Come in." Frank opened the door and gestured for Nina to enter. She walked in with her head high. Adrian was standing at the windows, his back to the door, hands in his pockets. Dark gray suit today, perfectly tailored. He looked like sin wrapped in Italian wool. "Close the door," he said, without turning. Nina closed it. The click echoed in the silence. Adrian turned slowly, and Nina's breath caught. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes, jaw tight, hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. But his eyes burned as they traveled over her, taking in every detail. The way her blouse draped, the curve of her waist, the length of her legs. Not leering, appreciating, like she was art he was trying to memorize. "You're punctual," he said finally. "I told you 8 a.m. Most people interpret that as 8:15. I'm not most people." The corner of his mouth twitched. "No, you're not." Silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. "Did you have a good weekend?" Nina asked, trying to break the tension. Adrian's laugh was dark, humorless. "I don't have good weekends, Nina. I have controlled ones and chaotic ones. This was chaotic. Want to talk about it?" "No." "Fair enough." She moved further into the room, comfortable in the silence in a way that seemed to surprise him. "Your office is next door," Adrian gestured vaguely. "Frank will show you. You'll have full access to my calendar, my communications, my files. Everything except the locked cabinet in the corner, that's off limits." "Understood."
"I need coffee," Adrian said abruptly. "Black, no sugar. From the cafe 3 blocks down. They know my order. And breakfast, something with protein." Nina pulled out her phone, making notes. "Anything else?" Yes. Adrian moved closer, each step deliberate. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that Nina could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "What's that?" she asked softly. "There will be moments when I'm paused, searching for words. Cold, distant, harsh even. It's not personal. It's survival." "Survival from what?" "From you." The confession was quiet, brutal, honest. Nina's heart hammered. "I don't understand." Adrian's hand rose slowly, like he was fighting himself. His fingers stopped an inch from her face, not quite touching, hovering near her cheek. "I make you want things I can't have," he whispered. "I make you forget why distance is necessary, and that's dangerous for both of us." "Maybe danger isn't always bad," Nina heard herself say. Adrian's eyes flashed. His hand dropped. He stepped back abruptly, distance and ice slamming back into place. "Coffee and breakfast. Go." Nina should have been offended by the dismissal. Instead, she smiled, that same warm, genuine smile. "Of course, Mr. Moretti." She turned and walked to the door. "Nina." She paused, hand on the doorknob, looking back over her shoulder. Adrian was watching her with an expression that made her blood heat. "I told you not to smile at me like that." "I know," Nina said softly, "but I don't take orders well." She left before he could respond. Behind the closed door, Adrian exhaled shakily. 3 days. He'd lasted 3 days before hiring her. Now he'd have to last every single day with her within reach, but untouchable. It was going to kill him. 2 weeks passed in a rhythm that was both professional and charged with unspoken tension. Nina learned quickly. Adrian's coffee order, his meeting preferences, the subtle signs of his moods. When his jaw was tight, he needed space. When his fingers drummed his desk, he was strategizing. When he went completely still, something dangerous was happening. She also learned that Adrian Moretti was brilliant,
ruthless in business, strategic, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. But there were moments, brief, unexpected moments, when she caught glimpses of someone different. The way he spoke gently to a young associate who made a mistake. The massive donation she accidentally saw him make to a children's hospital. The careful way he always made sure she ate lunch, even when he skipped his own. Adrian Moretti was a contradiction wrapped in expensive suits and careful control. And Nina was fascinated. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything shifted. Nina was in Adrian's office, reviewing contracts at the small table near the windows, when raised voices echoed from the hallway. The door burst open. 3 men stormed in, expensive suits, cold eyes, the kind of presence that screamed danger. Nina stood immediately, her hand moving instinctively toward the panic button Frank had shown her. "Gentlemen," Adrian said calmly, not even looking up from his computer, "you're early and uninvited." "We need to talk, Moretti," the tallest one said. His accent was thick, Eastern European. "About the shipment." "There's nothing to discuss. The terms were clear." "The terms have changed." "No," Adrian said softly, finally looking up. "They haven't." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Adrian had seen Adrian cold before, but this was different. This was lethal. "Miss Carter," Adrian said, his voice gentle despite the tension, "please step outside." "I'm fine here," Nina said firmly. All 4 men turned to look at her. The 3 strangers with surprise, Adrian with something that looked like terror. "Nina," his voice was steel wrapped in velvet, "outside now." "No." Adrian's jaw clenched. "This isn't a discussion." "You're right," Nina agreed. "It's not. These men walked into your office without permission, interrupting a workday. I'm your assistant. This is literally my job, managing interruptions." One of the men laughed, sharp, mocking. "You let your secretary talk to you like that, Moretti?" Adrian stood slowly. The movement was fluid, predatory, dangerous in a way that Nina's instincts screamed. "Careful how you speak about her," Adrian said quietly. "I'm not a patient man on my best days. Today isn't my best day." The tension ratcheted higher. Nina's heart hammered, but she kept her expression calm, professional. "Mr. Moretti," she said smoothly, moving toward his desk, "you have a conference call in 10 minutes. Should I reschedule, or will these gentlemen be leaving?" It was a power play, a way to give everyone an out without losing face. The tall man's eyes narrowed. Smart woman. "The smartest," Adrian agreed, his eyes never leaving the intruders. "Which is why you're going to leave, now, before I forget my manners." Something passed between the men, a silent communication Nina didn't understand. Finally, the tall one nodded. "We'll talk later, under better circumstances." "No circumstances will change my answer." The men left. The moment the door closed, Adrian moved. He was across the room in 3 strides, his hands gripping Nina's shoulders, not hard, but firm. "What the hell were you thinking?" His voice was rough, shaken. "I told you to leave." "And I told you no," Nina said calmly, even though her knees were weak. "I work for you. That means I don't abandon you when things get difficult." "Those men—" He stopped, his jaw working. "You have no idea what they're capable of." "Then tell me." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because if you knew, you'd leave. And I'm selfish enough that I don't want you to go." The confession hung between them. Raw, honest, terrifying. Nina reached up slowly, her hand covering one of his on her shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere," she said softly. Adrian's control cracked. His thumb brushed her collarbone, barely, a whisper of touch. "You should be afraid of me," he whispered. "Maybe I am, but not the way you think." "What does that mean?" She met his eyes directly. "I'm not afraid you'll hurt me. I'm afraid of how much I want you to trust me." Adrian's breathing changed. His grip on her shoulders tightened fractionally.
For a moment, one suspended, perfect moment, Nina thought he might kiss her. But then his phone rang. The spell broke. Adrian released her immediately, stepping back, distance slamming into place. "Answer that," he said roughly, turning away, "and then go home early. You had enough excitement for one day." "Adrian!" "Please, Nina," his voice cracked slightly. "Just go before I do something we'll both regret." Nina wanted to argue, wanted to push.
But she recognized the edge in his voice, the careful control barely holding. "Tomorrow?" she asked quietly. "Tomorrow," he confirmed without turning around. Nina left. But as she walked out, she heard it. Soft, almost inaudible. "You're going to destroy me, Nina Carter." She wasn't sure if she was meant to hear it, but it echoed in her mind all the way home. The next morning, Nina arrived to find a gift on her desk. A small black box tied with silver ribbon. No card, but she knew who it was from. Inside was a delicate bracelet, thin, elegant, with a single charm, a tiny shield. The message was clear: protection. Nina slipped it onto her wrist, feeling the weight of it. When she walked into Adrian's office with his coffee, he glanced at her wrist. Something softened in his eyes. "It suits you," he said quietly. "Thank you, though I should probably ask what I need protection from." "Everything in my world." Adrian gestured for her to sit. "We need to talk." Nina sat, her heart rate picking up. "Those men yesterday?" Then he stopped. Tried again. "I owe you an explanation." "You don't owe me anything." "I do." He leaned forward, his elbows on the desk, his eyes intense. "You deserve to know what you've walked into. Who I really am." "I already know," Nina said gently. Adrian's head snapped up. "What?" "I'm not naive, Adrian. The security, the business associates who look like they've killed people, the way everyone treats you, half respect, half terror. I figured it out." "And you stayed?" "Yes." "Why?" Nina considered the question seriously. "Because underneath all of this," she gestured around the office, "I see someone who's trying, someone who's carrying weight he didn't choose, someone who protects the people he cares about, even if he won't admit he cares." Adrian looked shattered. "You see too much," he whispered. "Maybe you don't let people see enough." Silence stretched between them, heavy, charged, full of things neither could say. "My family," Adrian finally said, "has been in, alternative business operations for 3 generations. I inherited responsibilities I never wanted. Control I can't give up. Power that isolates me from anything real. Until," Nina prompted softly, "until you walked in and smiled at me like I was human. Like I deserved kindness." Nina's heart clenched. She stood slowly, moving around the desk. Adrian tensed but didn't move. Nina stopped beside his chair, close enough to touch, but not quite. "You do deserve kindness," she said quietly. "Everyone does." "Not everyone, Nina. Not me. Especially you." Adrian looked up at her, and the raw need in his eyes stole her breath. "If I touch you," he said roughly, "I won't stop. If I let myself have even a moment of this, of you, I'll want all of it. And I can't have that. I can't put that target on you. What if I'm willing to risk it?" "I'm not." But even as he said it, his hand rose, slow, trembling, fighting himself. His palm cupped her face with devastating gentleness. Nina's eyes fluttered closed. "This is a mistake," Adrian whispered. "Then make it," Nina breathed. For one perfect moment, the world held its breath. Then Adrian's phone rang, sharp, urgent. He jerked back like he'd been burned. "I have to take this," he said roughly, already reaching for the phone. Nina stepped back, her face flushed, her heart racing. She walked to the door on shaking legs. "Nina." She turned. Adrian was watching her with such intensity it hurts to hold his gaze. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "I'm not that strong." Nina smiled, soft, knowing, full of promise. "Good," she whispered. "Neither am I." And she left him there, both of them knowing that the walls between them were crumbling, brick by careful brick, one smile, one touch, one moment at a time. The only question was, what would happen when those walls finally fell? Nina had no idea that her smile would unlock something dangerous in Adrian Moretti, something he'd buried for 15 years. And Adrian had no idea that trying to protect Nina from his world would become impossible, because she was already part of it. The moment she walked through his door, the moment she smiled, the moment she chose to stay. Their story was just beginning, and neither of them would survive it unchanged. If you want to see how Nina and Adrian's story unfolds, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss part 2. Drop a comment and tell me, should Nina run from Adrian's world, or is she exactly what he needs? Thanks for watching, and remember, the most dangerous love stories are the ones that start with a smile. See you in the next one.